Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for the launch of the report Future of Cloud and its Economic Impact Opportunity for India. Before we begin, a quick set of housekeeping rules. All of you will be in the listen-only mode, and if you have any questions, put these up in the Q&A panel. To kickstart this session, I would like to invite Ms. Debjani Ghosh, President NASSCOM. Debjani, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Atan Diksha, and good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome. This is a very special report that we are launching today, and I say special because I think this is an incredibly important step that we are taking. We talk about India's aspiration to become a $1 trillion digital economy. Now, that aspiration depends not just on the growth of the tech sector and how fast the tech sector is able to grow, but that aspiration is going to be strongly shaped by how successfully the non-technology sectors are able to leverage technology to improve their productivity, to improve their overall impact. So the digitization of the non-tech sectors become extremely critical to the realization of not just the $1 trillion digital economy goal that we have set for ourselves, but also the 5 trillion economy goal that the Prime Minister has set. It's time that we really started shining the light on what is happening in these analog sectors, be it manufacturing, be it healthcare, be it retail, be it agriculture, and how are they leveraging technology, or how are they digitizing, and what's the ROI of their digitization? Because that is pretty much going to determine whether we are successful or not. And of course, whenever we want to measure something, we have to start with the where are we? We have to start by establishing the basic start point where we are today, and that is a critical focus for NASSCOM. A few weeks back, we launched the AI Adoption Index, first ever in India, to look at how our enterprises are leveraging AI and where are we with respect to the adoption of AI. And today, I'm incredibly proud to have a very distinguished set of folks here with me today from the industry to launch the report that looks at where are we with respect to the cloud adoption journey, and what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? And what's the missed opportunity of not picking up speed as much as we should be? Just as we created history by crossing the 2 billion COVID vaccination doses milestone, I do believe that this is the time when India is strategically placed and we have what it takes to reimagine the future in many ways, to set those big audacious goals for the world in many ways, be it in healthcare or be it in other sectors, critical sectors like agriculture, like retail, etc. The pandemic, if anything else, has created a turning point for humankind. And I think we have to leverage it to the fullest to create a better future, a future which is truly inclusive, which is truly scalable, which is truly secure, and where technology is being used by all of us as a tool for improving the quality of life, for improving productivity, etc. I'm looking forward to the report today, and I thank you all for joining, because the only way we can accelerate this journey is by learning from each other. And for NASSCOM, that's the key goal. start by measuring where we are, start by setting the measurement framework, and then bring out the best known practices across key technologies so that we can learn from each other and hopefully catalyze our journey to digitization. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Diksha, but really looking forward to the launch of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devjani. Cloud is indeed reimagining everybody's future. As the next speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Rahul Sharma, President WWPS India and South Asia AWS. Rahul is also part of NASSCOM's Executive Council. Rahul, over to you.
Thank you, Diksha, and warm welcome to everyone. This is truly an important time frame, a time for us to be here. I think the way Devjani opened and talked about the way cloud is going to have an impact across the board on our life, I think this is a game-changing moment for us. And it's truly an honor to represent NASSCOM here for the launch of this report. My esteemed panelists, I think, are all here with a common sort of aspiration and a positive commitment to make sure that cloud and technology can be used for a positive impact to lives of people as we go forward. As Devjani was saying, that cloud adoption is actually integral to digital transformation. And when you look at accelerated digital transformation, I think that's where we've seen the effect of the pandemic and how it's really shown through the use of cloud. And when you think about technology, when you think about machine learning, AI, when you think about IoT, when you think about AR, VR, any of these new technologies that you think about, you cannot remove cloud from any of them. So I don't think of cloud as something that's one more technology of the 7, 8 new technologies, but it's essential. It's an essential element to every new technology that is being deployed today. You can on cloud, you can do machine learning without knowing coding today. And I think that's the true impact of how you can take cloud forward. I think the way in the last couple of years we've seen even the government adopt cloud, and then he talked about the fact that how the vaccination platform has scaled to over 2 billion doses, how we've utilized contact tracing. In India was one of the largest deployments of contact tracing in the world. I think those are just proof points to show how much of government is using cloud today as we go. And I think the aspirations of citizens from the government when it comes to technology and citizen services now at the same level, if not higher, than probably watching Netflix or doing e-commerce shopping. And I think the ability for government to deliver that experience today, like they've done recently with a number of examples that we've seen, I think shows how cloud can really be transformational in how, in bringing through this impact. I think it's important to note that India always has been native to digital, digital India, and all of the good work that has happened with the way India has progressed on digital India. The backdrop of Aadhaar, the backdrop of UPI, and now with CoWIN and Arogya Setu, it really shows that India is truly maturing when it comes to the usage of cloud and the usage of new technology for citizen impact. Right in 2013, India was one of the visionary countries to announce a cloud policy. In 2013, the cloud first policy was announced by the government. And I think the way in the last couple of years, we see this keenness within the government to really move forward with adoption of cloud. And I think when you think about how the government really responded to the pandemic using cloud, I think some of these we've really witnessed citizen-centric national platforms being launched from the ground up in a matter of weeks and days, and that's the real power of cloud. I think when you look at our collaboration with the government, the fact that eSanjeevani OPD, which is the national COVID-19 platform for telemedicine, the way that it scaled on cloud, the way that Punjab Municipal Corporation used cloud for citizen services delivery, in a few days we were able to develop for Niti Aayog an application that would track all of the aid that was coming in during the second wave. I think these are some of the examples that really shine through when it comes to the power of cloud. One of the important elements I think that I have to mention as well is the fact that startup innovation and the way startups are engaging with across the board in India it becomes a critical growth engine for this this vision that we have for Digital India. And we've seen some really tremendous adoption. I want to specifically call out the way startups are working with government. We've got programs such as AWS Activate, and we recently launched the AWS Public Sector Startup Ramp with a focus to make sure that the government can actually utilize startup innovation in areas of healthcare, agriculture, and we've seen a lot of good adoption, in these areas, and that's really heartening to see, because that's the hub of where innovation for social good would not only come for India, but I think India has the potential to become a sandbox and a gestation place for technology for social good for the world. The way that we're looking at digital diplomacy and the way COVID is being thought about being utilized outside of India, I think India truly has the ability to be the sandbox of the world for technology for social good because of the kind of use case that exists. I think one of the biggest opportunities in India is also about skill development and how cloud can really propagate that, NASSCOM future of skills, and some of the research that we've seen, some of the skilling initiatives that we've seen truly are path-breaking initiatives that are really helping us take skilling to the next level in India and making skilling as relevant to the person that needs to be reskilled, because cloud has the ability to deliver that. So thanks to India's cloud-first approach and regulations that are encouraging cloud adoption, we are actually seeing a really tremendous growth, and the benefits, the economic benefits in the country. I think it's evident from the NASSCOM report that India can fully leverage the cloud to create a future where adaptability, scalability, reliability, security, and speed are truly at the forefront of development of citizen services. So I think I'm really excited, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm really looking forward to this game-changing technology as we go forward. Thank you so much, and back to you, Diksha.
Thank you so much, Rahul. Just for the audience, I want to give them an update. Unfortunately, we just got to know Mr. Alkesh Sharma, who is the Secretary of MeitY, is not going to be able to join us to launch the report because he's been pulled into an important meeting. So I would request Debjani, Ajay, and Rahul to launch it. If you can just give me a minute, I'll just put all of you in spotlight, and then just a second. Go ahead. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Diksha. Excellent.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I now invite Ajay Gupta from Oliver Wyman to share the key findings.
Thank you, Diksha. So again, a great honor to be a part of this panel. And I would maybe start with thanking NASSCOM for inviting us for the opportunity to actually participate in developing this report. I would be candid. I think when we started speaking late last year, it took a lot of deliberation on how should we approach cloud. Both Debjani and Rahul talked about the fact that cloud, end of the day, is an underpinning technology which supports the growth of all of the other technologies. So how do you truly think about what will drive cloud adoption and what is the impact it will create economically, socially, geopolitically, right? All of that became an interesting conversation. But it was a real pleasure. And I think what we have emerged with is hopefully an action agenda for all the ecosystem players, be it the regulators, be it the cloud service providers, the end users, and some of the other enabling elements like academia. And today I'll just want to take maybe the next 8-10 minutes, providing a snippet of what the report is. I'd encourage all of you to, of course, go through the detailed report. And we are always available for clarifications, further inputs as the next few weeks and months come by. Would be delighted to connect with all of you to talk more about this. I'm going to put up a small presentation. So just give me a second. Is everyone able to see the presentation? Great. So what we call this was the future of cloud and its economic impact. And I think it was very important to have a very tangible way of thinking about our progress. Debjani talked about baselining. and then tracking our progress against that baseline. And what we will focus a lot in the next few minutes also is how did we think about where are we and where can we be and how will we measure our success. For starters, I think the good news is we are on a good journey. Albeit on a very small base, we have seen significant growth over the last 5-6 years, close to 45%, which is higher than the global average. Can we be comfortable with that? Can we be smug about it? Or should we be thinking about the way forward? I think it's the latter. Because what we now need to do is build on this momentum and really lift our game going forward. If we look at some of the matrices, and one simple way to look at it is how much is our cloud spend as a percentage of our GDP. We are definitely behind some of the advanced economies like US, etc. But we are also seeing some of the emerging economies like Brazil and South Africa already spending more time and attention and money on cloud. Of course, we have a complex environment economically and otherwise. So some of the challenges will be different, but I think we can take inspiration and say much more is possible. So that's the first message I would like to leave you with. The second is we can let the whole cloud growth go organically. But I think if we don't set an aspiration and a really action-oriented agenda, there's potentially opportunity loss. And the opportunity loss is on multiple dimensions. The first thing I'll call out is, if you look at the large corporations, we are increasingly in a globally competitive world. And if we don't empower, enable our large corporations to truly adopt best-in-class practices, they will not be competitive with the rest of the world. We will not be able to attract manufacturing in India. We will not be able to attract the services interest in India, and we will start lagging behind. And that is probably the most salient reason why we must think about adopting cloud and adopting it aggressively. Similarly, the government, right? I think already, and Rahul talked about it, we are starting to take flagship projects which are around citizen services and doing them in a unique way and in a first of a kind way. But there is a lot still left to be done. The agenda has to also be cascaded down to states and municipalities. So that has to become a part of it. And of course, the government also has a role to play in making sure they enable the adoption of cloud in the rest of the industry. I think all of this adds to our soft power. The more we are able to celebrate the way India is looking at cloud and its eventual enablement of digital customer citizen services, industry evolution, the more we see India is at the center of the agenda. We've heard the term decade. India has to now have thought leadership on anything and everything technology, and that is what will attract investments and broader interest into the country. And the third point, I think it was also alluded to by Rahul, which is that the small and medium businesses need a different kind of attention. We are very proud of the entire investment from a venture capital perspective, the setup of unicorns, but we need to now make sure that this is not a sprint, but a marathon. And we're able to build sustainable businesses. And to build sustainable businesses, the service providers, the other enablers, government regulators will have to find proactive ways of supporting them. If we don't, then their growth might be hampered. They might not be able to justify and sustain the valuations that have happened over the last few years. And we might not get the full benefit of the wonderful innovation-led economy that we have seen over the last 5 years. But in summary, I would say this is not just qualitative. I think quantitatively, we spend a lot of time thinking about the GDP impact. And we believe almost $100 to $120 billion of GDP is at risk in the next 5 years if we are not able to absorb and implement all the recommendations that we have collectively brought out in the report. And of course, linked to that is the job creation potential. Almost 4 to 5 million jobs are probably riding directly or indirectly from the faster adoption of cloud. And those two are very, very important elements that we all should be seized of. Just to talk about the process a bit, this has not been a report where we have sat behind a desktop and done research. This is a report we have almost co-developed with the ecosystem. We reached out to technology providers, infrastructure providers. We spoke to end users across industries, across patterns of ownership, across size and scale, to get as much flavor as possible of what are the challenges and opportunities for the industry. And we also spoke to some of the people who are related to talent management, because it is also a key enabler and potential obstacle to the growth of cloud services. If you're not able to create the right skill library and skill base in the country. Some interesting insights that came when we asked the end users, why do you actually think about cloud? And of course, there were variances by size and industry, but I think some salient trends that stood out. Almost everybody thought of this as not a cost optimization game. They thought about it as a way to actually rapidly innovate and put new products and services in the hands of their customers. I think that was very encouraging, because when it's that as a goal, then it becomes a CEO and board agenda rather than the agenda at a technology level. And it obviously gets the support and blessings then at a different level. Everybody said, without adopting this, we'll not be able to bring our customer engagement and experience to the best in class. And the third thing they said is, if used well, this can be a productivity driver. And this can help both within the technology function, but also across the organization, actually be a leaner and meaner. And there were other benefits we talked about. The second question we asked people is, if you're all convinced about the benefits, what's coming in the way, right? And it was very interesting. I would say, if you think of hard barriers and soft barriers, most of the barriers are actually soft. One statement that we can put out there is, leaders agreed that there is not a collective aligned agreement and understanding on what are the cloud features and benefits. So thought leaders and opinion leaders in the companies understand, but that's not cascaded and it's not become a broad-based agreement and alignment. The second is, sometimes we are held back by legacy systems and applications. They were designed in a pre-cloud architecture, and that's sometimes taking time to transition out of. And the third is skills. Do we have the in-house capability to drive these complex transformations? So these are the kind of barriers people talked about. As you can imagine, people are not saying the business case is weak. People are not saying that we are not ready. I think that's encouraging news, because it means if we solve for it, we can actually tide over some of these challenges. Needless to say, there is a stratification in the market of different kind of adopters. We are calling them cloud natives versus cloud adopters versus cloud aspirers. The cloud natives are very clear. These are born in the cloud companies. Their fundamental success is ridden on the fact that they have not been constrained by fixed infrastructure and fixed capabilities. They have borrowed, begged from anywhere and everywhere to be as nimble in the market as possible. These are not companies which can predict what the next year and next to next year's financial plan will look like. They're living month to month and quarter to quarter. The agility that they needed to have, cloud has provided them. So that's very clear. Then there are these data-rich, data-savvy verticals like communication, media, entertainment, financial services. These sectors are definitely starting to run fast. Of course, there are some constraints, but at least there is a broad-based alignment that we need to go after cloud. If I look at the core sectors or some of the traditional sectors like industrials and retail, maybe much more can happen. Right? On the government side, as I said, a lot of good initiatives, but it's not a static game. We're talking about UAVs in agriculture. We're talking about smart cities. All of this is going to create a preponderance of data, and then we'll need the capabilities to actually be able to store and compute this data in an agile fashion. So I think the cascade of these government initiatives across verticals and across the country is something that we hope for and aspire for. So that is how we are looked at the entire market. To double click a bit on the impact, 4 dimensions of cloud that we're talking about. GDP, we feel there's a clear potential if we grow at 25 or thereabouts %, 300 to 380 billion dollars of GDP impact. And this will come because of the value creation within the technology industry. It will come because of the value creation in the customers of the cloud technology. And it will come because, of course, we'll overall increase the ecosystem's affluence, the suppliers and the employees, and they will spend more money. There'll be a job creation agenda. We feel almost 14 million jobs can be created on the back of the investments behind cloud. Around 4 of them, 4 sort of million will be the direct impact, but there'll be the indirect impact this will create in terms of more third parties, more service providers, and that will create another $9 to $10 million of 9 to 10 million jobs. But these are the hard factors. There are also some interesting ways to look at the soft power, right? Innovation and entrepreneurship. If you want to go from 80 unicorns to 800 unicorns, right? if we want to actually be the first in the world driving innovation, then cloud has to play a very central role in that. And then the last bit is around our perception and position in the world. We have to show to the world that we are India for India, but also India for the globe. So can we become the capability center, the center of excellence for a lot of these capabilities for providers which are global in footprint? And can we also start providing some of these services from India to clients globally is also an agenda that the cloud journey can support us on. Lastly, to conclude, we have a very clear set of recommendations. Sometimes these reports end with 50 recommendations and then they get diluted. We were very clear we wanted to have a very sharp agenda. The end user industries, I think the agenda is change management. Identify the change drivers, create the sponsors, build internal awareness, expose your leadership to what's happening in the world, set aside the resources. It's very clear. For service providers, I think they have a continued role of evangelizing. So whether it's proof of concepts, whether it's road shows, whether it's exposing your clients to the art of the possible, I think we need to continue playing that role as service providers. Government has a dual role. I think one role is, of course, as a policy maker. So clarity of policy, defining the frameworks around data classification, privacy, security, that's a clear role because sometimes that's a barrier in the minds of consumers. The second is, of course, their own adoption as a show and tell. So some of the things I talked about around agri-tech, some of the things around smart cities, transportation, infrastructure, there are many use cases which are begging for adoption of cloud. And the last is the academia and industry associations. Skill will be a key barrier, and that's something that needs to be solved for. Industry has its role to play by creating captive capability building centers. But I think the academia now starts to have formal programs which start both in our technical schools and in our business schools, starting to talk about what is cloud, how does it actually get deployed, and what are the skills we need to build towards. So let me stop there. Happy to take any reactions or questions, but I thought this would be a quick summary of the report. Thanks, everyone.
Diksha, if we have time for questions, can I throw one at Ajay?
Yes, please. We do have time. Please go ahead.
So Ajay, first of all, again, really in-depth insights, and as you rightly said, it's very actionable. Now, one of the questions I had is when you look at total cloud spend, especially as a percentage of GDP, India is much lower than, say, countries like US, etc. And given that we are starting from a small base, I had actually expected at least for us to be spending more in order to catch up. So actually two questions for you. One is, what is the reason? Why are we still not spending as much, especially since we have to catch up with the rest of the world, given the role of cloud in as almost a foundational technology for digital transformation? And second question is, given the role that the government plays for driving digitization, and we've seen it across a lot of different technologies and sectors, is there anything we can learn from that any other country has really done well to scale adoption of cloud, especially in the SME sector? That's one sector I worry a lot about.
I think both great questions, Ityani. I think on the first question, I'll go back to some of the commentary I made. The reason we are probably not spending as much as we should, and it boils down to a few factors. One is around awareness. Does the industry truly understand the value of agility, of innovation, and of also borrowing good capabilities? The cloud service providers already have a lot of capabilities and stacks which they're willing to share with the end user industries. But instead of building on your own, the fact that you can outsource but still be secure and protect your core is an awareness building exercise. The second aspect, I think, is technical or technological. It's related to architecture. You are today dependent on certain native systems. You're dependent on some native service providers. How do you actually extricate yourself out of it and be willing to re-platform, re-architecture, and go to a new way of being? Nobody really likes pain, right? Everybody wants to stay with what is there unless there's a compelling reason. The reason can be greed or fear. I think Here, it has to be around greed, which is an opportunity that is in front of us to actually grow faster, serve our customers better, become more globally competitive. Once that happens, I think the change management becomes easier. And on the regulatory side, I would say, Devjani, there is no barrier, but perhaps what is needed more is more and more clarity, right? That this is the way the data protection bill comes in, right? This is the expectation from you as the financial services industry on what is and what is not possible, right? I think more effort towards building more clarity that industry don't fear, as long as you're within these sort of guidelines, we are actually encouraging you to do more and more of this. I think that's what will help. And I think that links to the second question, which is the governments that have done well or the regulators that have done well have typically done a better job of that regulatory clarity. And second, they've done a better job of show and tell, right? Singapore government comes to mind, for example. Of course, it's hard to compare a Singapore and India, right? It's the complexity and scale is very different. But taking some of these flagship projects and setting aside a team of people, driving them, then building high visibility and awareness around those flagship projects. Those are the kind of initiatives the successful governments have done much more. I don't think we have a lost opportunity. I think we have an opportunity in front of us. But what we need to do is mobilize faster and act faster.
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks, Ajay. Back to you, Diksha.
Thank you very much. We now come to the last part of today's session, which is the panel discussion. May I invite Ajay Gupta again? But before that, before he starts the panel discussion, I missed introducing Ajay earlier, so I'd like to do that now. Ajay Gupta is an experienced partner at Oliver Wyman and leads the communications, media, and technology and digital transformation practice for India. Over his 24 plus years of consulting experience, he has developed deep expertise in the technology and digital space with extensive work across industries covering new digital business models, digital propositions, and digital customer engagement. Besides project work, Ajay has led multiple thought leadership efforts with industry bodies across topics like future of e-commerce in India, multi-billion-dollar opportunity for telecoms, and NASSCOM study on innovation in India. He studied at IIM Ahmedabad, post completing his computer science engineering program from NSIT Delhi. Ajay, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Diksha. And maybe it might help to also introduce the rest of the panel. Maybe we can go around and then I can start a conversation. So maybe I'll start with Rucha. Rucha, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, I'm Rucha Nanavati, CIO at Mahindra Group. Very excited to be here. It was phenomenal to listen to the report. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Rucha. Kiran, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Ajay. Good afternoon to all. Kiran Desai. I head the cloud business for Geo Platform Limited. Very excited to be here. Fantastic report, Ajay. Very happy to go through it and then we can meet up and discuss further.
Fantastic. Manish, would you want to go next? Manish, you might be on mute.
Hey, hi everyone. Myself Manish. I had SIT for Patanjali. And so in my education, I did BTech from NIT Kurukshetra, MBA from Narsimhanji. I have about more than 20 years of experience into IT domain. Thank you so much.
Great. And Kanishka?
Hi everyone. Kanishka Agiwal here. I lead up these service lines for Amazon Web Services, India, South Asia.
Super. So a very esteemed panel, and it's my privilege to moderate a conversation amongst us. It should be free flowing, but maybe I'll try to tease up a few questions and get some reactions from all of you. So Rucha, if you don't mind, I would want to start with you. And the reason I start with you is as a large conglomerate CIO, you probably get to see a bit of breadth of perspectives across core sector, manufacturing, all the way to technology rich, financial services and other sort of domains. I would love to get your reaction on how are you seeing the awareness and perception of cloud as a technology within the Mahindra group? And how do you see that spanning across the different levels of maturity?
Certainly, yeah, you can say that. I get to see the width and the breadth of industries. You know, a lot of times, Devjani, you kind of started saying, you know, there's some how analog businesses are adopting to cloud and digital. I don't know if we have anything that can be called purely analog anymore. Most traditional businesses as well, we get judged by market on how your digital investments are. I mean, right? That and sustainability is the core of the reports these days. So I think every industry that we are in is transforming through technology, I want to say, right? You know, I have been saying this in my chats these days that technology is the business. It is, and cloud is such a fundamental platform. The apparatus that everything is depending on now. You know, you can either take any of our businesses. Let's talk about auto manufacturing, for example, right? Sure, we are connecting everything through cloud, right? Talk about AR, VR, talk about IoT, talk about you know, any experimentation that you want to do quickly, innovation on it, Industry 4.0, digital experiences, all of that. Connect to global supply chain and how will you make it resilient, right? That's one side of it. Now let's talk about connected cars. A whole different ball game that I can't imagine how would we make it happen if it were not for cloud. A connected car, I'm not even talking about fully autonomous car, we'll talk about that maybe some other time, but the amount of data it generates, yes, you'll make some decisions on the edge, but the amount of data it generates that you want to bring back and analyze it, it would be foolish to think you'd do it anywhere other than cloud, right? So it is such a fundamental thing that it has become. The other example I want to talk about is customer experience. Customer experience for every industry has changed. Even buying cars largely could happen without me ever sitting in the car. So I have gathered all the information, I have done my homework, I have picked the variant I want of the car and booked it and paid for it and taken the delivery when it comes. So the entire ball game of engagement and experience with customer has changed, and it has become largely digital. Some phygital, largely digital. So any business I talk about, life spaces. Let's talk about our real estate, our smart cities, smart communities, smart buildings. How would I support that, right? Finance, of course, has been and becomes more and more data dependent, and it enriches through data that is not just our data. That is the data that belongs to, in public avenues, in social media, through other places, whether it is KYC that you want to do, or you want to know a little bit more about what a customer likes and what the lifestyle is about, and how do I make it more relevant, the next offer, and how do I even market it to you, right? It can't be that only when you come to my website or my app or something that I should be able to market the right product to you. So all of this is, I believe, is fundamentally is growing on top of a cloud. To do all this, rapid experimentation, or even do high powered computing that we do for our auto type products, to bring agility in any of it, because the business life cycles are shrinking. You may have seen 10 years ago, you see how many times a car company would come out with a new model. Look at now, how many models or how many brand new products you come out with. It's a very different business life cycle, and that is being enabled by cloud. So I could go on and on, of course, but I'll sort of stop there with one thing, a comment about what we are doing, right? A lot of times people are starting the B2C, the customer facing thing starts with cloud, and that's a natural progression, nothing against that. What we have recognized that though that journey sort of slows down if your core is not up to the speed. your transactional core is. So we are doing the cloud transformation from front to back, from customer to core, fully.
Fantastic. I think it's very encouraging to hear, Ruchna, how you described it, that phygital and digital is now impacting every business. And also it's not just the customer's layer, it's also the internal layer. So great to see that. I want to move to
And
maybe...
Ajay, I have to step in here and say she's absolutely right. I think we techies have to stop using the word analog. Absolutely.
No such thing, yeah.
Great. So I want to move this to Manish, if Manish, you don't mind. By no means is Patanjali now a mid-sized player, but I think someone who's grown in the last few years to the scale that you've grown. But in that growth, from the perspective of a mid-sized business trying to grow, any thoughts from your side on where cloud could have actually enabled and what you feel you could have got as more support from the external ecosystem to actually be able to leverage upon that?
Okay. So definitely we have started from a very small company and become a large company with a turnover of more than 35,000 crore rupees nowadays. Okay, and our requirement is also grown as we are into the diversified domain. Diversified, like we are into the manufacturing, we are into the education, we have the universities, we have the treatment centers also. We are into the pharmaceuticals, like we are the one of the largest company into the Ayurvedic pharma. So definitely everything has been grown, and as the things grown, definitely the requirement of the companies also increased day by day. So in terms of the cloud, definitely the cloud we have adopted the cloud like before 2 years, but at a very small level. But so those days definitely we found some challenges. Nowadays definitely people are not finding the challenges with the cloud nowadays to adopt the cloud. Because this is almost adaptable and accepted by everyone. Either it's a private cloud, it's a public cloud, or it's a hybrid cloud. So many terminologies we have nowadays in the cloud. Okay, and we are also using the multiple ways of the cloud, like we have the private, public, hybrid, whatever you say, like 5-6 different type of clouds, different type of service providers, starting from the Indian service provider to the global service provider like AWS also. And we have evaluated all the partners and seeing their features, functionalities, services, and what all the tools, utilities they are providing, because we required different type of utilities for the different type of domains. Like we are into the agriculture, also into the pharma, education. So we have the diversified, you can say, user, customer, or maybe the employees. So they are using the technology into the diversified domain. Okay. So as the CIO, even I say, because AWS guys also with us, though we have not evaluated the Reliance Jio so far. Okay, but definitely we have evaluated the AWS guys. So I'll say thank you so much, because the kind of services they have provided to us, the solution they have provided to us, and the maybe definitely other things like support we got from the AWS and definitely from the other service providers also to like move the things from the on-prem to the on-cloud to get the better services. Because in the COVID situation, right, being a manufacturing company into the pharma, we cannot stop our services. So during that period, we have launched the multiple apps, Ajay, like with the e-commerce application, some B2B, D2C applications also we launched, so that we can directly communicate with the customer and can sell the goods, can take their feedback, and definitely so many things we have done during the COVID situation. So what like Dev Jani was saying, that cloud was the day when the people got more digitalized, and definitely we got the more approval from the management also, because like management was agreed to up the cloud digitalized, because even people earlier used to have a fear about the public cloud. The fear was like about the security of the data, fear about the cost, fear about, you can say, how we are going to manage it, then how to migrate the services. These were the fear, right? If I migrate the service, it will take a year time, it will take the 10 days time, there will be a lot of downtime. So many things we had in our mind, right? So because of the COVID situation, definitely we didn't have any another way out, right? Because we cannot run our data center, on-prem data center. We cannot buy the servers, like we cannot meet the requirement of the day-to-day what the company had, like for bringing the e-commerce platform up and so many things, right? So definitely, so the cloud was like, it's a miracle for us, definitely, because we got so many services from the cloud which was ready. Because see, like Ajay, like if I talk about like 10 years before, when I used to be a manager or engineer, if I tried launching a app, it took around like more than a month or 2 months just to prepare the POC for that. to prepare, to build a ground for that, right? Buying the server, setting up the POC server, then finding the utilities, tool, then blah, blah, so many things. Now, if you want to do a small POC or if you want to set up an application, everything is well ready with you, right? Everything is available on the cloud. You can start doing within a day or 2 day maximum. You have all the functionality of what you call container, Dockers, utilities, monitoring, blah, blah, so many things you have, right? You need not to worry about now management also. Earlier we used to have a list of the guys who used to manage the infrastructure, list of the guys who is managing the database. Now we have so many functionality from the different service provider, like what they call is the RDS kind of that, so many things, right? So overhead has been reduced, and because of the overhead is reduced, and then so the adaptability has increased. Okay, so people are more keen to use the cloud, and definitely we are also moving to the cloud. Okay, so we are using the multiple cloud service provider from the India, and so many, like where we get the best services, we take the service of that cloud provider. So because we have the like different service provider in the team we have. So what is the most worried thing and challenging thing what I see? The cost of the cloud providers. So you have the static cost. You buy one server today. After 2 years, 3 years, you have the very static cost. Okay, the cost of the server is 2 rupees today. Cost of the server will be the 2 rupees tomorrow, day after tomorrow also. But the responsibility of the IT head or CIO is to reduce the cost also. So I never see that like any service provider is providing a roadmap where he is saying that, Manish, if you use this server for 5 years, your cost will be reduced up to 5%, 10%, 20%, 30%. So this is the challenge what I see when we go from a capex mode to the opex mode.
Yeah.
In the opex mode also, we should have the cost reduction year on year also. If you are using the same service, same server, same infra, so this is the thing which need to improve, which can help the cloud service provider to have the better adaptability also, and definitely because this is the responsibility of the CIO to reduce the cost year on year. Okay, so this I would like to say, and thank you so much. Thanks for calling me.
Thanks, Manish. Again, I think while Patanjali might not be a born in the cloud company, clearly you are showing all the signs of being cloud adopters. And I think all of this is encouraging because that is what the rest of the industry has to witness, that this is already maturing and already providing benefits to you. And I think some of your feedback is probably noted by the people in the panel and broader. I want to shift this to actually maybe Kanishka now. Kanishka, we are having a debate about India, but as a global cloud service provider, one question I would have is, how do you rate India's infrastructure, policy, and skills? And what do you think would be your 1 or 2 top sort of asks of the ecosystem to make sure the cloud industry can leapfrog based on your learnings from other developed markets?
Sure. Thanks, Ajay. And I'll probably take the skills part because that's really the crux, right? Once you get the skills, the entire flywheel then starts coming through. I think from a skills point of view, as we've generally seen through across, whether it is the organizations that are actually building in capacity, skill and man force out there, or it is whether through the educational institutions that we're building through, there's been a tremendous amount of focus over the last 4 or 5 years. And with all due respect, NASSCOM as well has been at the forefront of driving the entire skills initiative, right? The entire future skills program essentially is to make sure that we have got a workforce that is ready to adopt new technologies as they come forward. There's been support from the government coming in for driving some of these activities. There is a significant uptick in terms of the courses that are being pushed out through educational institutes. And just by the sheer volume of the number of applicants and people that graduate off that, right? And that's a more of function of our population in general, is that we will, I don't have the statistics with me right now, but I'm sure at any point in time, if we were to take it and peg it against, say, on an absolute terms, how many cloud ready professionals do we have? How many of them are certified on the major CSPs? India would probably rank the top. If not, and if it's not the top, it's probably the second or third, but nothing lower than that. And that just says that there is a skill force that's ready not just to deploy for India, but across. Now, then comes the second part, which is the adoption. And as Manish was also mentioning, that there is an adoption that is now trickling down to mid-tier and then the SME business as well, right? Or the SMB business, as we call it. The large enterprises and the born on cloud they have already started the adoption. So born on cloud are anyway out there, and the large enterprises that were also mentioned earlier by Rucha was that there is that migration activity which is already on. There are certain pieces that are migrating, certain pieces not. And we all see that this is typically a 2 to 3 year journey because nobody migrates it at one shot. You typically, there's a layering of steps, which is understanding what you want to migrate. There's change management that happens. There's the ability for people to just retire your existing CapEx before you move into an OpEx model. And then subsequently you do phased migrations across, right? So that will take time, and it will get there with multiple of these large enterprises. But with the SMB segment, more importantly, the fact that it is now being realized that they need to move on to cloud, right? From their accounting softwares that are now moving to cloud versus, ERPs versus just procurement modules, and all of those actually moving to cloud is a significant change. Take Tally, for example, right? Tally is now available on cloud. And earlier it was an on-prem system, but you can actually now access Tally on cloud only because it's so much easier as you're filing in your returns as a business or as an individual. You can now have access to it across multiple systems. If you went to an auditor or your chartered accountant, you now have access to it. Earlier, it wasn't possible. You actually had to send out that dump to your accountant. And then when you look at the adoption that's coming in from the government side, Rahul spoke earlier about CoWIN, spoke about Arogya Setu, and these are brilliant case studies. And these are marquee implementations that India has done that hasn't seen the scale anywhere. There are 200 crore vaccinations on a platform like that, on a very simple platform. If you think of it, it's really 3 screens, right? But a 3-screen platform is able to handle 200 plus crore vaccinations as literally a global benchmark for us to put out. And that is only possible because it's on cloud. And Arogya Setu is only possible because it's on cloud. GSTN is also getting there, it's because of cloud. And so we are realizing that the power of cloud goes way beyond just enabling citizen services. It goes beyond actually saving lives, impacting lives, making transaction that much cheaper, making the ability for seamless governance to come in, so that the whole, the piece of making sure that with as many digital touch points that you can bring in, you optimize citizen delivery. You optimize the way the government is actually pushing out a number of these schemes across as well. So I think that is definitely working well for India. Now, where we have some work to do is that there are policies and there are regulations, and a lot of this will still be formulated. It is a growing phase. Every country goes through it. You mentioned Singapore, and Singapore is on top of the charts only because, one, the size of the country is small, but more importantly, they were much ahead of the cloud adoption curve than we were. A number of countries came later. Malaysia adopted because Singapore adopted, so Malaysia saw it and immediately adopted that through. And then we had a couple of other countries that also adopted across. We're at that mid-segment stage where we are constantly revising our policies or adding, because we find, okay, look, here's something that needs to be added because it will, one, either bring in guardrails, or more importantly, it will also help me sustain local businesses or help me sustain the overall economy. So we therefore start incorporating that in. It's a healthy process. It works with industry consultation, and we absolutely appreciate that. In another 3 or 4 years, as we get to it, I think we will have a fairly mature cloud policy, something that will go beyond. And I want to take a minute before you tell me that I'm hogging too much time. But we need to go beyond traditional workloads. And I think cloud is the one that will take us off traditional workloads. So everything that we today run are things that were already existing on your existing systems, and you moved it to cloud. How do I run my next IoT application, right? How do I run my next ML application? How do I run quantum computing on cloud? And there are today, for example, AWS is today doing a lot of quantum computing on cloud, because we say, why should only certain individuals that have access to a quantum computer be able to access a quantum computer, which exactly is the statement 20 years ago when we made. Why should only certain people have a PC at home or access to a PC? Why can't it be democratized across? And the same statement happened 60 years ago. Why should certain people have access to tape drives and those big mainframes when it should be put out to everybody, right? So I think cloud is at that point where we're absolutely taking this to the masses, and deep tech will now move to the masses. The traditional core will anyway go, but deep tech is where we're looking 5 years from now.
Great, Kanishka. Lovely thoughts, and I think some food for everyone to think about, which is, this is not about taking your current and migrating to cloud. This is about reimagining how compute should fundamentally happen, and then leverage the capabilities and skills that exist in abundance and the mechanisms that exist to actually be able to tap into it. So thanks for your thoughts. Kiran, maybe the last question I'll ask you. I think we have talked a lot about B2C sort of environments. I don't know how you feel about it, but given the focus on IoT and some of the investments in 5G that are happening in the country, we will probably start seeing different kind of applications come in the manufacturing oriented sectors also. Any experiences you'd like to share on early trends or early adoption that is happening in that domain?
Yeah, so Ajay, thanks. Obviously, the edge computing is becoming extremely critical with the advancement of IoT in last 3-4 years, and with 5G getting launched in India in next couple of months time perspective. And especially for a manufacturing or a retail organization or a gaming organization, 5G edge computing becomes extremely critical. And obviously with the security advancement happening and a lot of security posturing is being controlled at the edge. So edge computing will really explode when the 5G gets launched. And that's where there's a big play which will be available for all the CSPs and SIs and the telcos to take the advantage of edge computing, and obviously users has to adopt those things significantly. And edge to cloud is being talked about globally for many years now, and I can see now with the 5G launch happening in India, it is coming significantly in next couple of months.
Superb. So I think that was a lovely Q&A session, and I think we can go on, but Diksha, I'll be guided by you. Do we have time for one more question, or should we be wrapping up?
We have time for one more question, but short. We just have a minute or so.
Super. So I think it's a simple question I want to ask, and Devjani, I'll include you also in the Q&A. So the question is simple. If you had one ask of, and it doesn't matter who the ask is from, which you felt will help India bolster its strength and position on cloud, in 1 or 2 words, what is that ask that you'll have, and who do you have that ask from? So if you can just go around the room and put your wish list out here, it'll be a good one to sort of wrap up with. Maybe Rucha, we'll go back to you.
Sure. So I think very clearly, ask from CSP is interoperability. From government and other sectors is clarity and guidelines, guardrails.
Okay, superb. Maybe we go to Manish.
Okay, so the ask would be definitely more data center into India so that we can keep our data in India. We can host the services in India. Still, we have the scarcity of the data center. The requirement is geos, and we are hosting data our services outside India also. So, being an Indian company, I would like to promote more company to come into India, make their data center, host their services into India.
Great. Maybe we go to Kanishka.
Okay. I have a ask actually the other side of the spectrum, which are people who use cloud services, right? I ask of you of trust, right? Which is your trust that we have your data, your security, your privacy, and all of that is safe. I know that is the number one concern that anybody who goes on cloud has. So I just ask for your trust.
Great. And Kiran?
Yeah, so for India to accelerate cloud adoption, the key focus has to be on SMB and startup. So CSPs, telcos, SIs all have to focus on SMBs, come out with some bundle offers, and ensure that you handle SMBs to adopt the cloud significantly. I was surprised to see your findings say that awareness is still a challenge in India, and I think we need to do a lot from that perspective.
Great. So Devjani, I'll ask you to maybe answer the question, and if you'd like to have some closing remarks too.
I think my one ask is talent, because if we can grow the talent in India in abundance, then the technology is not a problem. If we can have the talent that can use the technology to create the magic, to show the results in terms of profitability and bottom line impact, I think everything else will follow. And talent is the biggest challenge, at least that I see, to technology adoption in the country. So my one big ask will be to 100x accelerate talent development in India. And with that, I just want to say a huge thanks. I mean, this was such a wonderful discussion, just listening to all of you and the different perspectives you all brought in. I think we just need to have so many more of such dialogues where we actually listen to people like, Ruja, Manish, Kiran, you all bring the other side, the different perspective, which is so important. So thank you very much for taking the time, for being here. And Ajay, thanks so much for doing such a great job with the report.
Thanks, Dibjani. Diksha, I'm giving it back to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Ajay, for moderating the session so well. Thank you very much to all the panelists, and Debjani, thank you. I know how busy you are, so thank you very much to all of you for making the time out. And audience, thank you very much. The report, like I said, is live on both our community page. I've shared the link on the chat and also on our NASSCOM website. It's a free report, so you can download it and please read it. It makes for great reading. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.